The fate of the Confederacy was at stake during the hot summer of 1863 when the armies engaged in combat at Gettysburg. Lieutenant General James Longstreet was a crucial player in the chaos and confusion, as his report revealed not only the disarray within the Confederate ranks, but also the significant ramifications of leadership choices that would reverberate throughout history. As scouts reported enemy movements and orders were sent out in a hurry, Longstreet's observations shed light on the difficulties his troops faced, difficulties made worse by a lack of communication, postponed attacks, and the weight of expectation. The stress increased with every hour that went by, culminating at a pivotal point where tactics changed and the threat of defeat became very real. Longstreet's first-hand account provides an engrossing look into a conflict characterized by bravery and vulnerability, where a nation's aspirations clashed with the brutal realities of combat. This story reveals the intricacies of command and the terrible results of division at Gettysburg. It is not merely a story of military action, it is also an examination of human perseverance in the face of insurmountable circumstances. On the night of the 28th, a scout reported that the enemy had crossed the Potomac and was likely chasing us. The scout advised General Headquarters to gather the army east of the mountains and prepare to face the enemy. The following day, I was instructed to relocate a portion of my command and establish a camp in Greenwood. Pickett's division stayed at Chambersburg to cover the rear, while the majority of the command marched on the morning of the 30th. By 2 p.m., the two divisions and reserve artillery had set up camp at Greenwood. General Hood directed a brigade and battery to join Pickett at New Guilford on the road to Emmitsburg. The following day, our men marched towards Gettysburg, with the exception of Pickett's division, which was still stationed at Chambersburg, and Hood's big brigade at New Guilford. Johnson's division of the 2nd Corps, accompanied by a large wagon train, slowed our advance greatly. McClellan's division arrived at Marsh Creek, 4 miles from Gettysburg, after dusk, while Hood's division approached the town about midnight. Law's brigade landed at noon on the 2nd after being sent to join its division during the day. Prior to this, the commanding general gave me orders to move my forces in a way that would allow me to reach the Emmitsburg Road on the enemy's left. The enemy had established a strong position stretching from Cemetery Hill along the Emmitsburg Road after being driven back the day before by Lieutenant Generals Ewell and A.P. Hill. I chose to hold off on attacking until General Law's brigade joined its division because I was afraid my forces were not strong enough. When he got there and we were prepared, we started moving. We were led down a path that would have exposed our plans by engineers that the commanding general and I had dispatched. We encountered some delays as we looked for a more secret route. Around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Hood's division pushed farther to the right and partially encircled the enemy's left flank, while McClellan's division took up position across from the enemy's left. These two divisions' positions along the Emmitsburg Road were far stronger than the enemy's original one. Our batteries opened fire on this position, and as Hood's division attacked from his left and McClellan's from his front, we quickly forced him back onto a steep hill that was hard to climb because of its rough terrain. Many stone fences at its base strengthened its defenses, and the enemy retreated behind them as we pushed them back point by point until almost nightfall, when a strong force confronted brigades from Major General Anderson's division that were supporting my left flank. This caused one brigade to retreat and diminish support for another brigade, leaving my left flank somewhat exposed and outflanked. At this point, Wofford's brigade of McClellan's division was also pushed back. I decided it would be prudent to hold off on moving until my other troops showed up. General Hood had to leave the field of battle after suffering a serious wound. This setback caused some delay in our operations. Brigadier General J.T. Anderson from his division also suffered terrible injuries and had to evacuate as well. During this fight, General McClaw lost 2 brigade commanders. While General Semmes suffered terrible injuries and eventually passed away, General Barksdale suffered fatal injuries. Our command was now set up to hold on to the territory we had captured on the right, while retreating to the enemy's initial position at Peach Orchard on the left. We took 2 regimental flags and 4 pieces of artillery during the battle this day. The following morning, we readied ourselves to launch another attack from the right, with the goal of flanking the enemy-held hill on their left. I thought it wouldn't be too hard, but it would probably be a slow process. The commanding general joined me shortly after I gave the order for this strategy and instructed that Pickett's, Heath's, and a portion of Pender's division be used to form a column of attack. The primary enemy position at Cemetery Hill was to be the direct target of the attack. Given that only Pickett's division was new and two-thirds of the troops in the attack having participated in a difficult combat just 2 days prior, the distance we needed to cross in full view and under enemy fire appeared too enormous to guarantee meaningful results. Orders were given to Major General Pickett to form his line using whatever cover he could find from the enemy's batteries, making certain that the focal point of the enemy's position would be reached by the attacking column's center. Commander Heath's division and General Pettigrew simultaneously followed General Pickett's line, which was to lead and assault the enemy's defenses. 2 brigades formed the front of Pickett's division, with a 3rd brigade providing support behind them. Wilcox's brigade was directed to advance behind his right flank in order to defend it against any potential attacks by enemy forces. Under Brigadier General Pettigrew, Heath's division was organized in 2 lines, with Major General Tremble's portion of Pender's division providing support. All of the 1st and 3rd Corps' guns, as well as a few from the 2nd Corps, were positioned to provide efficient fire on the enemy's left-held hill and the point of attack. Colonel Alexander and Colonel Walton, the 1st Corps' chief of artillery, had positioned our guns and arranged with other Corps' artillery officers to determine when to fire. General Pickett, who had been in charge of setting up the lines behind our artillery, stated that the troops were prepared and positioned on protected terrain at approximately 2 p.m. Then we ordered our batteries to start fire on Colonel Walton. All of those batteries replied admirably when the signal guns were fired. The enemy's left-hand weapons on the hill were quickly silenced, but the Cemetery Hill guns kept up their ferocious defense. As they went into action, new weapons swiftly replaced the many that had been pushed away. Colonel Alexander was told to locate a position from which he could watch the effects of our fire the best and alert us when it was time to strike. I rode over to Major James Deering's battery after ours started to fire. We were driving off batteries and it seemed the enemy was putting in fresh ones at a quick pace. If we wanted to accomplish anything before dusk, I decided we had to launch an attack as soon as possible. I gave the order for our batteries to restock their ammunition boxes and be ready to continue our push. I discovered that he had informed General Pickett that the attack was indeed imminent, and I subsequently instructed him to proceed. I found that our batteries could not efficiently return fire since we had such a small supply of ammunition. I would not have supported an attack under better circumstances, but if I had thought of that possibility, I would have revoked the order. It was a remarkable advance. While taking fire from the enemy's batteries with remarkable poise and resolve, every soldier kept their lines precisely. About halfway between our position and that of the enemy, a ravine afforded some shelter from their fire, allowing for a brief halt for respite. After a moment's respite, we continued our march in good order. Our left flank began to stutter a little under the strong fire from the enemy's batteries, which shortly opened fire with canister shots directed at us. We nevertheless persisted in making steady progress in spite of this obstacle. Only when they were close enough to engage at musket range did Pickett's troops appear to be deterred by the enemy's fire, pausing momentarily to return fire. At this crucial juncture, Major General Anderson's division was directed forward to assist Pettigrew's and Tremble's faltering columns. After delivering their fire against the enemy positions, Pickett's troops charged forward, but then broke ranks and retreated in great disorder. Many more men fell under enemy fire while withdrawing than had fallen during their initial attack against those positions. This unfavorable circumstance allowed the enemy to focus all of their forces against Pickett's division, increasing the likelihood that they would breach his defenses or decimate his forces before Anderson's division could get to him in time. If Anderson advanced too far without assistance, he would also be severely exposed. He was therefore told to stop his advance right away. The enemy quickly overran and drove Pickett's division back, capturing over half of the survivors who were not killed or injured as they advanced toward its front and wings. General Wright of Anderson's division, together with all the officers, was ordered to regroup and assemble the scattered troops behind Anderson's division. A large number of my staff officers were dispatched to help with this endeavor. I rode to the front of the batteries to observe and manage their operations in case of an enemy attack. The enemy forces moved forward at different times and from different locations, but these were only reconnaissance maneuvers that were quickly driven back when our guns started firing. Until nightfall, when the enemy fled to their stronghold, these minor gains and retreats persisted. After that, my line was dragged back to the Gettysburg Road on both the left and right, where it joined the right flank of Lieutenant General A.P. Hill. I was instructed to finish all the arrangements for our retreat after nightfall. Before daybreak on the 4th, the preparations were ordered and work started. After the forces were pulled out of our line on the evening of the 4th, my unit started to march under the direction of Lieutenant General A.P. Hill. Heavy rains and terrible roads made our march much more difficult. We did, however, get in the mountaintops early on the evening of the 5th. Since our weary troops and horses were not in a state to move quickly, my command advanced toward Hagerstown on the 6th. When I learned that I could get to Hagerstown in time to relieve our trains at Williamsport, which were in grave danger from enemy forces, I felt bad. After reaching Hagerstown at approximately 5 p.m., our column proceeded down Sharpstroke Town Pike and established camp approximately 2 miles away from the town. You have already received reports outlining the campaign's casualties, including those who were killed, injured, and reported missing. As your most faithful servant, James Longstreet, Lieutenant General Commanding, 1st Army Corps, Department of Northern Virginia, I have the distinction of being Colonel with the utmost respect. The sounds of cannon fire died away as the dust settled over the Gettysburg battlefield, leaving behind a scene tainted by doubt and sorrow. Lieutenant General James Longstreet's narrative highlights the Confederate soldiers' tactical shortcomings and confusion, as well as the important issues that remain in the wake of such a significant historical event. If choices had been made differently, what may have happened? Would the battle have gone differently with a more cohesive command? Longstreet and his exhausted soldiers took the weight of their losses and the weight of unrealized promise with them as they withdrew under the weight of defeat. Lieutenant General James Longstreet's narrative highlights the Confederate soldiers' tactical shortcomings and confusion, as well as the important issues that remain in the wake of such a significant historical event. If choices had been made differently, what may have happened? Would the battle have gone differently with a more cohesive command? Longstreet and his exhausted soldiers took the weight of their losses and the weight of unrealized promise with them as they withdrew under the weight of defeat. Although the retreat to Hagerstown was a watershed, it was only the start of a more profound conflict that would test their resolve and reinterpret their mission. While the Confederacy struggled with its identity and future, the Union rejoiced in the aftermath of triumph. Longstreet's observations compel us to think about how leaders handle the difficulties of war when confronted with insurmountable obstacles. What lessons that still apply today can we learn from this turbulent chapter? We want you to comment on Longstreet's story and its significance for our comprehension of strategy, leadership, and the human spirit during times of crisis as we consider these issues. Though it may be quiet now, the discussion has just began. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Please like and subscribe to this channel so that we can support the growth of our community.